marking the horizon line, and I still want to have this sort of a lot of water and focus down the front, so I'm not going to completely disregard the reference picture, but I'm just going to add in a bit more sky in there. I feel that just needs to be emphasized more. So I'm just starting in here with the horizon line. I think around there should do it. So this will be more focused on the water, and you can see it looks like the image has been edited a bit as well, so it's got this kind of misty sort of feeling. So we'll see if we can get that in, that we might change it up later on down the track. The most important thing here is just getting in this lighthouse shape quite accurately, because that's going to identify I guess that's the main subject of the actual painting. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get in a really basic outline of where it is. So there's some rocks and things here. I think little houses or something like that. You can't tell, you almost can't tell, they're just silhouettes against the sun. And just getting in a few little bits of detail like that, but I'm being pretty loose here. I'm not spending much time at all. But you can go in to the reference picture a little bit closer, so you can double click on it. Let's have a little look at some of these houses. For example, this one here, you might want to emphasize the roof there. There's a little roof here as well that you can get in like that. Sort of these little areas running down here. This area here is just all kind of bits of land, so it's a kind of island. Don't really know where this is. I just found this reference picture on a free stock image website, and we'll carry this one off just around here, cut it off here like that, and a bit of land come off like that. But we've got the lighthouse pretty much coming up here now. Having a look at the lighthouse, you just want to make sure that it's not too big in comparison to the buildings that we're sketching in. So just take a look at the buildings, and I would like to mark out maybe here where we want to stop it. Again, we don't need to get it just exactly as the reference picture is, but it does need to make sense. So just having a look, I think that might actually be a bit too tall. So I could end it about here, and then just carry off this top bit of the lighthouse like that. There we go. Really not too much detailing at all. A lot of this stuff we can get in with the paintbrush later, but it's still quite important to get in the general proportions first, because you don't want to go in with the brush and realize, okay, I've made it too tall or that kind of thing. Okay, I might actually shorten this a bit. Get in some of these little windows here, like that. And some areas of the houses as well, so there's little chimneys, just indicating some of the roofs, that kind of thing. Just enjoy getting in some of those little details there. Actually, this comes out more like that, then it comes down into the water, so I think that's looking how I generally want it. So I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to go over here. Let's have a look what we want to do. So there's these little poles sticking out of the water, and I'm also thinking they're a bit too how should I put it, they're just a bit too clumped together, a bit too organized. So I want to change that up a bit, so just maybe spread these out a bit more and have them come in from an angle, and we can have like maybe little ones here as well in the background, and that's just going to help again with that sense of perspective. And this is where you can start doing things like adding in an indication of a boat there. Might be another boat here, for example. You can get some of the sails in like that. Some more in the distance, just a couple up here, for example. So that kind of thing. Making them smaller in the background as well helps. So I don't really want to overdo it either. I think I've gone a bit too far with all those boats, but we'll see how we go later. You can also have boats that are facing forward like that. Maybe one here. Another one here. Maybe just a teeny bit closer to us. Like that. Let's have a look if that makes sense. I think that's a bit too big, so we can rub that out. And something I'm always trying to work out as well, whether an element that you put in, whether it's to scale or not. So I'm going to make that a bit smaller, especially because I've got this one that's a lot smaller as well. It's not going to make sense, but having a few boats that do come closer like this, it does make a difference, because it just looks like there is a sort of sense of scale to this painting, and we can put a mast up for this one as well and just get a bit of detailing going on. So we've got rocks and things up here in the front, and I really don't need to pay too much attention to these. We just got to get in some basic shapes. In fact, I'm just going to get a whole funny looking shape like that coming in from the side, and I'm actually going to carry it a bit further in around here. And really what we want to do here is we just want to indicate some rocks going into the water. We have some smaller ones here, for instance, some popping out the top like that. There's actually a little path, it seems, and like a rail that goes across like that behind a lot of these rocks. Whether we want to indicate that or not later, that is up for speculation and up to you. But that's why I love changing around reference pictures. Sometimes you have to do this, and it's the only way that you can learn different techniques and I guess make a painting your own. So larger rocks up the front like that there, just bits of detail, things like that. Some of this I'm just making up as I go as well, just as a general guide for the pencil, for the brush later. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so first things first, I want to get in some clear water, and I'm using a large mop brush here and really just going straight into it. So starting off at the top, I want to wet the entire sheet of paper. I don't have it taped down or anything, so if you've got 300 GSM cotton watercolor paper like the stuff I'm using, you're generally okay. You do get a tiny bit of warping as you paint later on when it dries, especially if you use a hairdryer, but it straightens out later on. So I prefer just to paint straight onto the paper, just less preparation and less time. So bringing that wash of clean water all the way down the bottom, and you need to also just look at the paper from an angle and see whether you've covered those areas properly with water. It should be sort of glistening a bit, and that's when you've wet that piece of paper properly. Okay, so trying to move off bits of things that are just stuck on the paper. So I just gonna go over this another time, really make sure that we've got that paper completely saturated. Okay, fantastic. So the first thing I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna start off with a tiny bit of orange and yellow. So I've already got some yellow here and orange on the palette, so I might just pick that up and go straight in like that. This is going to be quite a bright area of the painting, so I'm going to get in yellow over here. There's some orange as well on the palette, which I'm picking up too. So drop that into the horizon line there, a bit more orange. You know, there's a tiny bit of red. If we can drop that in, that's going to help too. Just mix things up a bit, and just go all over like that, all over the buildings and things as well. Carry this wash down into the foreground, so just where the water is there. We're basically just bringing that across to the left side now, and remember, just add in a tiny bit of red as well to this mix, because we want to encourage some blending as we go up into the sky. We just want it to be a little bit, have more red up here. So this is a bit of magenta that I'm using. So just dropping that magenta in, let it mix and mingle with the orange. A bit more yellow, I think, up here. Let's pick up some orange here. More orange again, like that. Near the top. Let that all blend in and do its thing. And I'll just see if I can get a bit more of this yellow. Here, blot out a bit of that. It's too dark. Okay. So going up against the sky now, just going to grab more of this red, and it's same magenta color, and feathering that in like this, just letting it melt into the layer below. And in the corner up the top, we just want to get that a bit darker, so I'm picking up a little bit of purple. Now you can mix up your own purple. I've just happened to have some on the palette which I can use, and just add in that purple up the top left hand corner like that. Get that to fade in with the other colors. So that's all I'm doing, just getting a bit of mixing going on here in the paper. I'm even picking up some other colors that I've found that are also useful, so going through. And what I want to do quickly is I just want to re-wet some sections at the bottom. I'm going to use another flat brush just to re-wet some of these areas at the bottom, because I can see that it's starting to dry off a little. So I want to get a nice wash that runs through the entire painting. I just don't want this to look out of place. So again, let's just go back into the sky, picking up a bit of this blue and red that I've got on the palette, and I'm going to just feather in some darker little spots like this in the sky. And this is important because we want it to be a little bit darker near the top. You know, it's good that it's kind of fading nicely into this section, but you know, we do need this part a little bit darker. So you know, this is just going to help. You know, we can even emphasize some clouds a bit more than the actual reference photo. I think I'm going to keep it looking kind of soft like it is at the moment, and just add in little bits and pieces like this, but don't want to have too kind of harsh looking clouds through this painting. So just drop in a little bit more there, tiny bit of purple again up in the corner to darken it down. Shift that across like this. There we go, just let that do its thing and blend on the paper. And I might have a bit in here. It's the great thing about working wet onto wet. There's just a lot of this beautiful mixing that's going on, and you don't really know what's going to happen. You can control it, but a lot of the time you just want to let it do its thing. Okay, so I'm going to leave that area of the sky and go into the bottom here, and you'll notice that it's already started to bleed downwards, and that's fine. I'm just going to go grab myself a bit of this not ultramarine blue, it's cerulean blue, and start off here. Just add in some of that blue and get that to blend a bit with the yellow like this. There we go. Just dry off that brush a teeny bit and get that to kind of run little streaks through like that. Very light streaks. Around the left hand side, I'm going to just pick up a bit more of this blue and do exactly the same thing. Don't want to get rid of that lovely yellow wash there. You just want to blend it in and let it do its thing. Okay, fantastic. And I'm going to move down closer to the foreground now, and we're picking up more cerulean blue and actually a little bit of cobalt blue as well, and shift this paint further down. And this area of the rocks, we are going to just color over the top like that. I'm just going to see if I can leave some white. It's probably not going to stay like that because it's all wet into wet. Here we go. And a bit more this darker blue in there as well. I think there's a bit of Prussian blue in there, and just carry this wash down the page like this. A bit more cerulean blue mixed with some cobalt blue down the bottom areas. Just needs to be darker near the bottom, so let's go ahead and do that. And I'm just trying to add in some very light waves and things running through the water like this. Just let it do its thing. Want to imply very sort of still, calm water. So to do that, you just want to make all these streaks go in the same way. And if you notice, I've been using the same brush the whole time to paint, and it's possible because the bit of paper that I'm using is a bit larger. It's A3 size, and also this brush has a small point on top which allows me to do that. So important to remember that fact. And picking up some more cobalt blue, and again I'm just going into that bottom area, adding in some more of this paint, this cobalt blue, because I want it to be darker down the bottom corner, just like it is in the reference photo. And also it just helps with you know, that perception of depth as well as what I was talking about before. Pretty much the back areas I'm not thinking of touching. I'll just leave those as is. Another thing you can do is, you know, if you've got a small round brush, you can pick that up, pick up some of this paint on the palette, and then you can just do things like that in smaller ripples and that sort of thing. But I mean, it's not a huge deal, to be honest with you. Just little ones maybe in the back, like that. Make sure that paper is still wet in that area as well, or at least kind of damp. It is starting to dry, I can tell. Okay, and you know, you've got a choice here to actually go in and start getting in some clouds in the horizon line. I'm going to leave this for now, thinking whether I should put in some sharper clouds later, or I may leave it, but let's finish this one off and give it a dry. Okay, so I've given the entire painting a really quick dry, and there's still a little bit of dampness down the bottom, but I'm going to just work on this part of the painting and hope that it dries off in time. And I'm quite happy actually with how the skies turned out, especially with these clouds around here. So I'm going to leave that. I don't want to muck it up. So what I'm going to do is get this silhouette of the buildings in here. And I'm going to actually start off maybe with a tiny bit of warmish coloured paint. So just a bit of orange on the side of this lighthouse here. And using a small round brush, it's a number 4, I think, holding it quite close to the end. And moving down here, I'm also going to just pick up bits and pieces of paint that's left on the palette. So it's really just the old bits of blue and greyish sort of paint that I'm just trying to pick up from the palette. I'm not particularly trying to get in any kind of colour, but let's just get in. It's one of it's transparent enough, but still darker than the rest of the painting. So you don't want to go too dark, sort of a mid-tone here, especially because the rest of the painting is quite light still. And go in, and you can add in little bits of darker areas as well as you do the silhouette. So just concentrate and get this lighthouse in very close. And comes up here like that. Oops, there we go, more like that. We've got bits sticking out here, and let's just get in this top section like that, quite loosely, and then we'll just indicate the top of the lighthouse there. You only get one chance to do this as well. Okay. Let's detail a bit more in this area here. A bit more darkness there. Great. Okay, so we just move this down, and you know, like I'm saying, I'm holding the brush quite close to the tip so that I can get in a few more smaller brush strokes to form the lighthouse a bit more, because I don't and I want it to look like a lighthouse. And let's go ahead and move this wash further down. I'm just using a bluish wash of paint, really nothing too special here, with a bit of red mixed into it as well. And we're just going to get in this nice little silhouette of the buildings, and it's roughly the same tone color that I've used for the lighthouse up there, except like I was saying before, you want to mix in some little dark spots where you can in the silhouette, because that's going to make it look more interesting. Okay, and I'm leaving some areas of the previous wash of the paper on as well. Okay, we're just going to carry this down. There we go, just indicate where it hits the island down the bottom. There. And another indication of like a chimney or something like that there. Like that. Okay. Move that across. Just have a bit of fun. I mean, I've stopped looking at the reference picture at this stage, and we'll just carry this all across the page here. It finishes about here where the buildings end anyway, so just going to get in a bit of the bottom here of the island. Here we go. And just indicate a bit here, a bit of the land there. Just coming, sticking out of the water. That. Okay. Let's have a look at the lighthouse, and I think I might just need to touch it up a teeny bit. Okay, we'll leave that. And at the same time, I'm also going to get in some of these boats. So just a little indication like that, really. Nothing too fancy. See if we can get in the little mast too. Just a quick indication that. Another one here in the middle of the page. Get that mast in a bit taller, like that. We'll probably have to adjust that later on. Another one there, or whatever that is. Okay. Some of these little holes sticking out of the water as well. I'm just going to get some brown and mix that in too, like that. A bit of brown. Get in some indications of these little holes sticking out of the ground. Then there's actually a little shadow underneath, which I can just dry brush in. Indication like that. Very subtle. And forgotten about these little boats here on the left hand side as well, so I'm going to get them in with a few quick brush strokes. Hopefully do them all at once. They're quite far in the distance, so you don't need to go too dark for them. Really just drawing with the brush. Like that. Okay, I might start working on these rocks here in the foreground now. And I'm going to be picking up just a larger kind of brush. This is a calligraphy brush. Forgot to wash it last time. And using this, I'm going to be picking up a mixture of blue and brown so that we can get in indications of these rocks. So let's start with a bit of brown, this is burnt umber here, and go in like that, just with a bit of a indication. What I want to do is also just leave some highlights on the rocks. So mainly kind of in the front area of them, like that, just to indicate that the light is coming from that side. So I'm going to just try to indicate there. Carry this down the page. Just need more water in this mix actually to get a tiny bit more of a fluid feel. Down the back here. Go. Some areas where the rocks hit the water as well, so we can just get some little bits of dry brushing going on like that. Just indicate something going on. Not going to take too much time out to do that. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, and thinking also is just to add in some slight ripples and things in the water while I can, because there's just a little bit of action missing in this section of the painting. So I'm going to pick up a bit of blue, bit of ultramarine blue, and just mix that up with some of the leftovers on the palette. Dry off the brush a little bit, and just going to go through and just try to indicate some little areas, waves that are running through the water. Not everywhere, but just bits and pieces. Underneath these boats as well, just trying to get a bit of a reflection going on. and also just a bit of a reflection of this lighthouse as well, something like that, nothing too fancy. Just have that carry on to the boat, move down the page like that. Great, and just add little kind of ripples across the water in areas. Make the waves smaller at the back. Okay, great. I'll just get some darker ones up the front as well. We can just get some sepia mixed in here with a bit of cobalt blue. I think this is going to help a bit, just in the corner here. And I may actually glaze over the top of all this afterwards. I'm thinking it's just a bit weak in the corner. But we'll see how we go. We'll see how we go, because you know, I don't want to stuff up the nice little wash that we've got on in the background. So I just get in a bit of darkness in the corner here and just blend that in, sort of feather that in. I think that will do the trick. And that's going to draw more attention to the lighter areas of the painting. So just feather this in almost with a bit of dry brush, like I'm doing here. And you know, it actually carries on out to the back of the painting here where the horizon line is. So you can just carry this off like that, just very gently, like that, indicating the horizon line. I've gone a bit too high up on that one, but no worries, we can just bring this up more. Okay. Feather in a bit more blue in here. But more cobalt blue running through. Okay. Great, I'm going to leave that section and start working again back onto these rocks, because this needs to be darker. And we're almost finished with this painting. There's just a few little finishing touches that we want to add. And this area just needs to have some darker sections on it because it's closer to us. So keeping that quite rough as well. Just indicating some darker areas on these rocks. More the ones that are closer to us. Like that. And just indicating some textures as well. Comes out, the rocks come out to around here. Like that. So just a tiny bit of feathering. Let that do its thing. I think it needs a bit more brown in here, so we'll add in a bit of brown. That. And just indicating that. Okay. letting it do its thing. I'll get one sticking out a bit here, like that. Okay, and some finishing touches. I'm just going to go back into some of these boats, maybe some of these poles again, to darken the area up. Just emphasize this mast again, just to make sure it comes out in front more. And this one too. Here, this one here. Connect them to the boats down below. That. And you see, re-emphasize some of these little reflections too. Like that. I'll get some coming in front as well of these, the lighthouse area. Another one here. Okay. Just do the same thing for these ones on the left. Usually the ones closer. Often at the end of the painting, that's when you can sort of see bits and pieces that you need to maybe darken or re-emphasize. Okay, let's have a look at these little poles. We'll darken them as well. Okay. Bit more darkness. The rocks, little crevices. Good. So we can add some birds as well now. This sort of just finishes off the painting quite nicely. And you can also just do a bit of detailing, a bit of dry brushing onto the lighthouse now. So maybe there's like a little window there, area under here to indicate that. Just bring out some more details. That. And bit of a roof or something there. Okay, and that's finished. Check out these tutorials down the side here. I've got a couple of playlists that will help you get some ideas and improve your watercolors.